What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another YouTube video yet again. As you guys can see, I'm in a little bit of a different scenery. Just wanted to switch it up for you guys in today's video. I wanted to talk about how to build a simple three-fund portfolio. So when you think about investing, and for any beginner investors who want to start actually investing into the stock market, the simplest way to actually start is investing into ETFs, right? So today I'm going to kind of give you the strategy on a few funds that you can first start with as a beginner investor. So if I had to start investing from scratch today, right, and I didn't want to pick 20, 15 different individual stocks, and I wanted to actually start investing into ETFs as a whole, here are the funds that I would actually buy. YouTube, this is not financial advice. This is just me giving some advice, giving some knowledge that I've learned in the past. So the funds that I would go into, these are not funds that are risky, right? These are not funds that are risky. These are not ETFs that are risky. These are well-known ETFs that everybody practically invests in. So the first fund that I would want to start with would be a US stock market fund, right? So when I say a US stock market fund, essentially what I mean is you're either investing in the United States as a whole, right? Majority of the companies, whether they're mid cap, large cap, small cap companies, depending on what their market cap is, there's VTI for that. Then there's also VOO if you want to bet on the top 500 companies in the S&P 500. So you're betting essentially on the S&P 500 and the top 500 companies in the United States when you're getting into VOO. And then for VTI, you're investing into mid cap, small cap, large cap companies. So a multitude of companies. So you're not only investing into the heavy hitters, but you're investing into the smaller companies as well that have some potential to grow. So to start off this portfolio of a three-fund portfolio, I'd first want to start off with either VOO or VTI. Someone like me, I choose VTI because VTI is the totality of the stock market, right? So you're getting a mixture of multiple different companies. You're not only sticking with one company, you're not only sticking with a certain sector or a certain industry, but you're getting exposure into multiple different companies in many different industries. All right. So that's why I choose VTI. VTI also pays you a dividend, right? It pays you a dividend, meaning it pays you quarterly. So every time you invest your money, the more shares of this company that you have, the more your dividends is. And essentially, what you can do with those dividend payments is reinvest them. So it's anytime you get a dividend payment, it goes directly back into your portfolio. So you're not taking that dividend money out, but you're taking that dividend money and you're reinvesting it back into your portfolio. So VTI is the first ETF that I will start with because I'm investing into the whole US stock market as a whole. VOO is another option if you want to bet on the S&P 500 index fund and you want to bet your life that the US economy and these 500 companies are going to consistently grow over time. Essentially, what is good with ETFs is that ETFs are the companies inside the ETFs can be cycled out. Meaning, if a company stops producing, if a company stops hitting the correct numbers, if a company stops doesn't hit the right metrics that determine it being inside the S&P 500, it essentially can get removed from the S&P 500. So that is the reason this ETF and these ETFs specifically why they're always growing. This is why they're always growing because these companies get cycled out. The top company today, as far as market cap, is Nvidia, but 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was not Nvidia. It was a different company, right? So you got to realize this list and the top companies are always changing, meaning companies are getting removed and companies are getting added in these ETFs. So those are the either two that I would pick when it comes to picking my first fund that I want to start with, my primary ETF. The second fund that I would go on to use would be QQQ. This one is the NASDAQ 100 tech ETF. This ETF, essentially what it allows you to invest into is the non-financial companies. So this fund holds majority of companies that are tech. So think about that. You're also getting exposure into a lot of tech inside of this ETF. So when you invest into this ETF, you have to understand risk. There is risk involved with investing into this ETF. If you believe in technology and you believe in innovation and you believe of the growth of American technology companies, then you can invest into this ETF. I'm someone who believes wholeheartedly in technology. I believe what AI is going to do in the next few years, you're going to see some massive growth within this specific ETF, which is why I'm an investor in QQQ, which is why I'm an investor in these ETFs that support technology. But for someone like you, if you can't see yourself being a risk taker and you don't kind of envision the growth of technology, then don't invest into this, right? This is for people who are able to take a little bit of more risk with their money, right? And over the long term, you'll see this ETF, it grows over time, right? It has some times where it just lifts up and it moves up, and then there's times where it goes down. That's called volatility, meaning the price range on the day can change from positive to negative in an instant. So just think about that when investing into this. But if you're thinking about just investing into the long term, 5, 10, 15, 20 years out, and you kind of project technology to be different in 20, 30 years, then invest into this ETF because it actually has exposure to technology companies as a whole. So your top tech companies are inside of this ETF. You have Apple, you have Google, you have Microsoft, you have Tesla, you have multiple different tech companies that are inside of this ETF that are driving it to reach at the levels that it's at right now. I'm not certain what the price is for QQQ, but I can search it up right now. QQQ stock price. QQQ stock price is 721 right now. It's 721. The price of it 6 months ago at its lowest was 558. So that means this fund has gone up over time. And if you're someone who's dollar cost averaging into QQQ, you could have been getting some major returns during this technology spike that we had in the market. During this spike that we had in because of AI and the demand of AI chips. So think about that. QQQ is the Invisco QQQ Trust. It's the non-financial companies, meaning you have majority of tech companies inside of this ETFs. If you had invested $1,000 in Invisco QQQ Trust 10 years ago, that investment would actually be worth around 5,800 to 6,200 today. See, this equity is an incredible annualized total return of nearly 19 to 22%, significantly outperforming broader benchmark indexes like the S&P 500. So this ETF specifically actually gives better returns than the S&P 500 because it's a tech ETF. And tech, when it comes to tech, tech is more innovative, right? Tech is always looking for the next big thing, how to get better, how can we innovate as a country, how can we innovate as a society. That's why you'll see always major spikes in tech. But as far as the S&P 500, it's a little bit more stable, right? Because you have multiple different companies. You have Walmart, you have Coca-Cola, you have bigger companies that are kind of stable, that balance it out. But tech is a little volatile, right? You'll see major spikes and you'll see major downturns. See, the last ETF that I want to give you is an international ETF. So the two funds that we listed earlier were VTI, VOO for your first fund, right? VTI is the Vanguard Total Index Fund consisting of multiple different companies. So your small cap companies, mid cap companies, and your large cap companies. That's VTI. VOO follows the S&P 500 index. So it's your top 500 companies inside of the United States of America that are composed inside of this ETF. So when you think about your heavy hitters that are at the top, the Mag 7, Tesla, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, those type of companies are at the top. And then you also have Walmart, Costco, those big companies that are inside the S&P 500. Then you think about your QQQ, which is mainly tech heavy, right? Non-financial companies. So it doesn't consist of Walmart, doesn't consist of Berkshire Hathaway, but it consists of majority of tech companies. Then your last play that you want to invest into is an international ETF, because after getting so much exposure into these first two ETFs that are very United States centric ETFs, you want to get some international exposure, right? A popular ETF that you can invest into is VXUS. So instead of owning only US companies, this fund invests in businesses from countries around the world that are emerging, that are coming up. So think about that. If you can get just a little bit of exposure from companies that are around the world, that are emerging, and that are starting to become successful. No one knows which market will outperform for the next 20 to 30 years, but you want to get into every specific industry, every fund that gives you exposure to multiple different sectors. You want to find a way to invest into them. Owning both the US and international stocks is playing the game good on a good side, right? You're spreading out your risk even better. So you're not betting essentially wholeheartedly on the US economy as a whole, but you're also betting on the international as well. So you get a mixture of both ETFs, right? When it comes to investing into VXUS, the stock price of VXUS is currently $86. A year ago, that stock price was at $68. So essentially, the stock price of that VXUS has gone up. And if you're dollar cost averaging into your positions the same way you're dollar cost averaging into VTI or QQQ, then you essentially saw that growth inside of your portfolio, inside of your portfolio account. So when you think about investing long term, think about being spread out so you can manage your risk. You don't want to go too US centric. You also don't want to go too much into international, but you want to kind of have that balance. So that's a three fund portfolio that I kind of put together to allow beginner investors, people who kind of don't understand investing, to kind of start dollar cost averaging into these positions. So you got VTI or VOO. Remember, VOO S&P 500, top 500 companies, VTI mixed with small cap companies, mid cap companies, and large cap companies that are in VTI, the Vanguard Total Index. Then you got QQQ, which is your non-financial companies. It has about 100 stocks inside of this ETF. Then you have VXUS, which is international based ETF that allows you to get international exposure. It was official Lisi, back again with another finance video where I'm teaching you guys and helping you guys understand the basics of investing and how to create a three fund portfolio that's going to help you to grow financial wealth. All you got to do, dollar cost average, put money into your positions on a consistent basis, and you'll be able to grow out your positions. Thank you for watching this video. If you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe down below to keep up with these videos, and and comment down below what videos you want to see in the near future. Thank you and peace.